Bill Burr is one of the greatest comedians to ever walk the face of the planet, but an amalgamation of events over the last several years have made a lot of old fans question if Bill Burr is still the same guy who destroyed Philadelphia in a legendary unhinged rant, or if he's gone completely soft and stopped caring about his comedy as much now that he has a family and millions of dollars to his name. I've talked about Bill Burr a plethora of times on my channel, given the fact he's one of my favorite comedians, but I almost always get comments about Bill and how he's either gone woke, he's a sellout, or how his wife has changed him ever since they got married. If you're curious about Bill Burr and whether he's gone soft or not, what it is that has made some of his old fans turn on him, and whether I personally think this is all true or it's just a load of baloney, then you've come to the right place. I will be discussing all of that in today's video and addressing some of the more recent controversies Bill has been a part of. If that sounds interesting to you, then let's hop right into it. When we talk about the old Bill Burr, there's so many things that come to mind that made people really love the guy and his honesty. There's an old clip of him talking about beautiful women and how he doesn't trust them.
I really don't trust beautiful women. You know why? Because they're only around when you have shit. It's like the second you get some, if you don't have anything going on, you're just like hanging out with trolls and shit, you know what I mean? But the second you get some shit going on, they come out of the woodwork like, oh my God, you have some stuff. Can you buy me some stuff? And then the second you go broke, they're like, oh my God, I left something over here. You know, it's just a real fucking turnoff.
And of course, there's the famous Philly rant he went on where he takes down an entire audience and makes them come to love him at the end of his set. There's also hours and hours of him on the Opie and Anthony radio show with Patrice O'Neal, Nick DiPaolo, Louis C.K., and others where he will talk all the shit in the world. Not to mention several brilliant comedy specials where he really showcases his hilarious rants filled with jokes and his relatable anger that has made so many people come to love his comedy. As I said earlier though, there have been a few things that have really made people think that Bill Burr has gone soft. The first event that comes to mind is how Bill Burr and his wife Nia attended UFC 295 back in November 2023. If you're not familiar with what happened, I'll bring you up to speed. Bill and Nia obviously attended the UFC 295 card and sat in a couple of the front row seats. Also in attendance that night was Donald Trump, who showed up much later in the night as he usually does, and most of the time the crowd goes crazy for him there. However, one of the cameras caught Nia flipping Donald Trump the bird with both fingers as he was going to his seat, and a lot of people got really upset over this. There were a lot of people on the political right complaining about Bill Burr's wife doing this, and also how Bill didn't do anything to stop her, insisting that she wears the pants in the relationship. I think if you disagree with it or find it cringy, that's your prerogative, but for people to complain about this and say Bill needs to control his wife is absolutely ludicrous. Michael Knowles and Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire made videos about this, and some of the comments are really dumb. Like this one saying how Bill Burr's wife should stop because Bill might lose fans over this. Bill Burr has said some pretty edgy things over the course of his long and distinguished career. So if you really are a fan and you thought all of that stuff was funny, it's pretty unlikely that you'll see his wife flipping off a president and stop watching. I mean, if that's really all it takes for you to stop watching a comedian, then you should probably grow the fuck up. How someone who can be set off that easily ever enjoyed Bill Burr's comedy in the first place is a mystery to me. Bill also went on the Rich Eisen show and responded to these people who were outraged about the whole ordeal.
How's your wife's hands doing these days?
Oh, they're fantastic. I love my wife. You know where you stand with her. Okay? The guy walked in the arena. Everybody cheered. She gave him the finger. Nobody got arrested. That's why this country's great. Everybody expressed themselves. Can we all be adults? I mean, I don't know about you, but I came there to go to the fights. I didn't know I was going to the Republican National Convention.
To me, Bill's response is pretty level-headed, and I agree with what he said for the most part. Like, obviously Nia's behavior might be crass or unclassy by flipping Trump the bird, but she's a public figure and an adult that can make her own decisions. It shouldn't be the reason you stop watching Bill's comedy because they're completely different things. Another thing a lot of people mention is how liberal he was politically when the pandemic was taking place. Like, I've shown this clip of him on Joe Rogan a lot before where he cooks Joe Rogan for talking about masks with authority.
You want people to walk down the street with a mask on?
Let's not start this, Joe.
Do you, though?
Let's not start this. Okay?
Let's start it.
I don't want to start this bullshit. I'm not going to sit here with no medical degree, listening to you with no medical degree, with an American flag behind you, smoking a cigar, acting like we know what's up.
better than the CDC. All I do is I watch the news once every 2 weeks. I'm like, mask or no mask? Still mask? All right, mask. That's all I give a fuck about. I don't care.
But even they say you shouldn't wear a mask unless you're treating a corona patient. The World Health Organization.
Yeah, but they didn't say that
literally
initially. They didn't say it initially.
No, they didn't.
They did, and then it gradually, and then wait, and then everybody wore the fucking masks. This is like rollerblading. Everybody fucking rollerbladed, and then there was that one fucking homophobic joke, and then everybody acted like they never did it. And then 100 million fucking rollerblades got thrown into the fucking ocean. We all wore masks, and then all of a sudden, people are fucking sitting there. What? You don't have the body type for it, dude. Your fucking knuckles would scrape on the ground, even with that extra 2 inches. I just love how wearing a mask became like this fucking like soft thing that you were doing, like being courteous.
Bitches.
Being courteous. Why is it for bitches? That was so
You're wearing a
stupid.
mask. First of all, it's
Oh
not,
God, you're so tough with your fucking open nose and throat. Gee, Joe, and your 5 o'clock shadow. This is a man right here. A man doesn't wear a mask.
This clip, even though it didn't necessarily age that well, is still hilarious regardless of the validity of it, because it showcases a character trait of Bill very well. Some people watch this clip and speculate that he's just agreeing with stuff his wife Nia would say because it's easy to go along with, instead of having your own opinion that might not be in full alignment with the establishment. I can see this side a little bit more, since all of this information would radically change over the course of just a few years, but also Bill Burr himself has never claimed to be an orbiter of endless knowledge. In fact, he's said on numerous occasions how he can be a complete idiot who gets things totally wrong. I would say in his act, Bill Burr is actually a huge fence-sitter politically and socially, and that's totally fine for a comedian to be. That being said, offstage it is pretty obvious that he leans left, but when you consider the fact that he lives in Los Angeles, California, and he's married to a self-proclaimed feminist, that isn't a surprise at all. I think as long as you're funny enough and not insufferably annoying about politics like some of the dickheads that invade the late-night comedy space nowadays, a lot of regular people will probably be able to handle your stuff. Another thing that made people really disappointed with Bill Burr was the way he handled the situation with Anthony Cumia when he got kicked off of the Opie and Anthony radio show. What happened was Bill didn't really go out of his way to defend Anthony at all, and some people felt he really should have put his neck out for Anthony, and that his wife Nia is probably the reason he didn't do this. I mean, Anthony Cumia called Bill's wife ugly and has never really been on good terms with him before all of this happened, so it's pretty obvious why Bill distanced himself from Anthony Cumia and didn't stick up for him. Whether Nia nagged Bill to do it or not, we don't know for sure, but if somebody calls your wife ugly, I really don't think you should be surprised when they're silent when you go through shit. And this situation I'm mentioning very briefly, but it will probably get its own video at some point in the coming months, because the lore behind Anthony Cumia and Bill Burr's fallout goes quite deep. Then probably the biggest thing that has made people think Bill has gone soft is the increasingly dominant presence of Nia in a lot of his podcasts when weighing in on issues, and also giving advice to viewers who send in emails. Like sometimes Nia and Bill will give completely different advice, and Bill folds a little bit and agrees with her. Sure, maybe you could say he's whipped or whatever, and that Patrice would make fun of him, but I don't think Bill feels the need to win every single battle or take a super strong stance on everything he's asked by listeners of the show. Bill picks his battles wisely and has an amazing life he worked really hard for. I'm sure he's not going to potentially sabotage that to win one argument over something that just really isn't that important. So if you asked me this, Nate, do you think Bill Burr has gotten softer and changed? My answer is absolutely 100% yes, he has changed. But do I still think he's one of the greatest comedians to ever live and continue to support him and listen to his work? Also 100% yes. Here's the thing, when Bill Burr was coming up as a young man from Canton, Massachusetts, who had this pent-up anger and frustration that he held onto as he got into comedy, he very quickly realized that if he harnessed that angry energy and used it in his act, that it made him very relatable and likable to the audience. So he built his career off of that, and that's what made so many people fall in love with him as a comedian. A lot of these complaints were topics that everyone could relate to, like being broke, and funny stories about family and the difficulties of dating. This guy who had nothing and was just doing comedy because he loved it is the same dude who did the Philly rant and went on all these angry, rage-filled diatribes in his comedy routine. Sure, he made jokes about marriage, how it seems like a bad deal, and how ugly divorce can get, but do you really expect the guy to never take a chance and start a family with someone? Of course not. Living a life all by yourself is not most guys' first choice. After getting married to a woman he loves and having 2 children, children, of course he's going to get softer. The dude is living the life he worked decades to get, so he's not as angry and dissatisfied with his life as he once was. In fact, he seems like he's really happy and content with everything, which is inevitably going to impact his outlook on life and subsequently his comedy act as well. As I mentioned earlier, Bill's politics are what they are, and I do not care about them that much if I'm being honest, because I think politics are fucking gay. I don't think he's sold out as a comedian, even though he is softer. I think he has remained authentic to who he is as his life continues to change. And naturally, some people are not going to like that, and that's perfectly fine. We're all changing, and not everything we liked 5 years ago we're going to continue to like today, except for Norm Macdonald, because he's always going to be the funniest comedian to ever live. If you're curious to hear more about Bill Burr and why I don't think he's sold out, there's a really good article written on this topic by Jerry Corley, also known as the Joke Doctor, that I think explains exactly why Bill Burr has changed, but why he's still authentic to himself and hasn't sold out. I'll leave a link to that article in the description so you can read it. But anyway, these are just my half-baked opinions. I could be completely wrong, but I still think Bill Burr is great and that it's totally cool he's not the same guy he was when he shit on Philadelphia. But what do you guys think? Do you think Bill Burr has gone soft? Do you think it's for better or worse? Or do you think he's become a weak, limp-wristed comedian who doesn't care about comedy anymore? Do you think Patrice would be disappointed in him, or he would understand how he's changed? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. If you guys want to see more Bill Burr content, I have a whole playlist dedicated to him and an hour-long video essay on him you can watch. Make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, and if you want to support me more, I've also got some bonus content on the Patreon you can check out by clicking the link below. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. Take care.